everyone, and welcome to, I guess this is like the first official episode of this series. We did the prequel episode where I built the map, but this is where we're going to start actually building. So I'm excited. This is Goingsnake. This is a new series that I'm starting on a new channel that I'm starting. So I'm Jaja Links. Welcome to the channel. And this series is going to be this little mountain town. I'm imagining it being in like the mountains of western North Carolina. I'm kind of modeling it after Asheville, or maybe not. Maybe modeling's not exactly the right word there, but Asheville's kind of the inspiration. I want it to be in fall because the Appalachian Mountains in the fall are wonderful and I love them, and I thought that would be a fun thing to kind of build in city skylines. So to get this series kicked off, we are going to be building a power plant, and kind of the primary asset that I'm really using here is this nuclear facility made by Ronix. I'm not really billing this as a nuclear power plant. I'm thinking more like natural gas power plant. I know Asheville is either just opened or is in the process of opening a big fancy new natural gas power plant. So that's kind of why I went that direction. But to me, all power plants kind of look the same. The nuclear ones just have those giant nuclear reactors. So I basically just built a nuclear power plant without a nuclear reactor, and we're just going to call it a natural gas power plant. So yeah, 10 points for realism, I guess. Anyway, so just a little bit of background on why I named the town Goingsnake. I briefly mentioned it in the sort of prequel episode where I built the map, and I wanted to touch on it a little bit more in this one when I had a little bit more time. I felt like there's a lot of stuff that I was kind of trying to cram into that prequel episode. Anyway, so Goingsnake is a Native American name. It's one particular Native American, a Cherokee chief named Goingsnake, who I was just kind of browsing different Native American names and towns and stuff like that because I knew I wanted to go with a Native American name, but I wasn't sure what exactly. And Goingsnake just kind of caught my eye. I thought it was a interesting name, and then I started reading into who Goingsnake was, and it's a pretty interesting and sad story. He was a Native American chief who was born in 1758. He was alive kind of in the later years of his life when things really got bad in terms of the Native American relationships with the English, and he got kicked off his land. And when he was 80 years old, he walked the Trail of Tears, and then he died not too long after that. So I thought that was a interesting story to kind of go along with the city. Just a little bit of a reminder of, whose land this originally was, that this fictional city is going to be located on. So that's Goingsnake. And I guess I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about this build now that I've got that covered. So as you can see here, it's all kind of starting to come together a little bit. I wanted to get the shell of the power plant done before I started doing too much detailing. So all those big gray buildings off at the top of the screen there, those are all the Ronix. It's called dual nuclear reactor, I think. It's all assets from that pack. And then that warehouse is just like a generic warehouse that I threw in there. I felt like that kind of fit, some sort of storage. It seems like most power plants have some sort of warehouse situation attached to them, so that's the thought process there. And a parking lot, obviously, because, employees need to park somewhere. And all in all, I'm super happy with how this build came out. This is really kind of my first foray into like really detailed, heavily modded cities. I got this game for PC when it first came out, and I really fell in love with it. I've been playing it ever since it came out, really, without any major breaks. But my computer wasn't really good enough to truly be able to play it at its fullest potential. As soon as my city would get pretty big, it would get really slow, and then I'd have to dumb down the graphics a bunch. So I kind of stopped playing it on PC when the console version came out, because the consoles could run it a little bit better. And I never really bothered too much with mods back when it first came out on PC, just because my computer couldn't really handle it. But I have since done some upgrading, and my computer can finally handle it. So I'm wanting to get into the world of doing more detailed builds like this, and just kind of being a little bit more involved with the City Skylines community, because this really is, I would say, pretty much hands down, it's my favorite game. The Last of Us is right up there too, but that doesn't have quite the same replayability value that this game has. I don't even want to know how many hours I've gotten on this game. It's a lot though. And so this was an interesting little piece right here. I actually am really happy with the way that this area came out. So I don't know exactly what the thought process here is. I was looking at a blueprint of the that natural gas facility that they're building in Asheville. And it had kind of this, it was a sort of a U-shaped building, just like what I've done here with this build. And it had this sort of drop-off loop type area in the middle of the U, just like what I've done here. And I don't know, I assume it's just, I don't know what I assume it is, honestly, but it's there. I assume it's just some sort of entrance, maybe like guest drop off. So I don't know what it is, but I wanted to put like a security shack here that you had to kind of get clearance if you wanted to come in. And I imagine maybe the employees check in here when they show up to work in the morning, and maybe any guests that are getting dropped off have to come through here and things like that. So that's what's going on here. I got these little train track arms going in as the security gate, a little fence there. And then the shack itself is actually a little 1-block residential building. It's just a little house that I plopped there. I think it looks pretty good. It's a little bit funny because it is actually someone's house. It's the only house in the city at this point. And at one point, we did have a whopping population of 9 people living in the city, courtesy of the guard shack. So that's fun. And then I kept playing around. I wanted to do some sort of a main entrance type thing here, because I am picturing this as being the main entrance where all the employees are kind of going to be coming in for the day. And I just wanted to do something a little bit more than what this asset had. I didn't really feel like there was something that was a true obvious main entrance, and also I wanted to do more than just take Ronix's assets and put a road around them and plop down some concrete and call them a build. I wanted to customize it a little bit more. So I kept playing around with a bunch of different commercial buildings, and I finally settled on these ones, these sort of like tile fronted, I don't know what they are exactly. That one's a coffee shop, I think, and the other one was something else, but I already pulled the signs off. But yeah, I felt like they sort of fit the aesthetic pretty well of of the power plant, and I really liked the way that they looked, especially once I got them lined up and everything kind of cleaned up a little bit. I thought that the front came out really cool, and I like the fact that they're commercial, so that's gonna get a little bit of traffic over there. I want this thing to be, because I don't think that the power plant itself is going to generate any traffic, so I wanted to have a couple of assets in there that were. So I've got the house for the guard shack, the commercial stuff for the main entrance there, and then later on, I don't really show it very much. I think I show part of it, but I add I put a morgue just clipped into part of the power plant also. So there's going to be some hearses driving around. I also put an incinerator in there. I don't know why exactly. Well, we're just going to say it's a multi-purpose facility. And yeah, we're kind of starting to near the end of this build now. Now I'm just kind of detailing it a little bit. I wanted to have the inside here be pretty well kept. We take great pride in our very clean, very modern and sleek power plants here in the town of Goingsnake. But then I wanted to have sort of the boundaries of it be a little bit less kept. So I've got this broken fence that I put along the edge, and then I tried to kind of scatter some weeds around the outside of it. I don't have any weed assets that I super love. So I don't know. I'm not super happy with how some of that came out, and I guess I got distracted a little bit and I'm not placing the weeds quite yet, but I also put a water tower down, as you can see. Just the main reason being that I was tired of all of the angry messages saying that there was no water, and since there was no water, the power wasn't operating, so there was no power, and it was a whole mess. So I was trying to kind of eliminate some of those issues as I was building, just because they drive me crazy. I like to have a city with no error notifications, which is probably not going to be a realistic goal, as I'm trying to build a more detail-oriented city versus a functional one, which is what I normally do. But that's neither here nor there. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Anyway, so yeah, more detailing. I put this little green area, just some bushes and trees and stuff, kind of at the main entrance behind the guard shack, just to liven things up a little bit, give it a little more detail, and make it so it's not just this giant, massive concrete and whatever gray material that building is actually made out of. So just threw some different trees in there. And now I think I'm going to get back to the... Here we go. Now I'm putting the weeds in. That's going to be a struggle as we're going through this for me, I think, is just keeping my OCD in check. I have a tendency to start building one thing, and then if I'm not really happy with how it's going, I'll just sort of bail on it and start working on something else and come back to it later. So this is a neat little space here that I did. Just wanted to do, again, some more green spaces. And I figured that this was kind of a weird shaped area, so I didn't really know what other buildings might work well there. So instead of putting more buildings, I opted to just do some more green. And then right in the middle there, in that section between the two, I clip in a path. So this will be like maybe if someone walks to work or something who lives nearby, this would be kind of the route that they're taking to get to the front entrance. I did the path all the way to the road. So it's a little bit awkward the way it's just wedged in between the parking lot and that warehouse. But at the same time, I do think that it adds nice touch of color, and in the end I was pretty happy with the way that it came out, despite its awkwardness. So yeah, we're just putting some trees around because I wanted this to be pretty functional, and I'm hoping once we actually have some people living here, it'll be a little bit more alive. I doubt it'll ever be like crazy busy over here, given that there's not a whole lot there, but I'm hoping to see a little bit of movement. Oh, there's a trash truck. That's something. And then I didn't really know what I wanted to use for the path going through here. I changed it like 3 or 4 times. And honestly, I don't even remember what I settled on. And part of the reason was because I really wanted something that was going to cover the grass, and me being a bit of a noob at the whole modding world, I didn't realize that you can use the surface painter to delete that grass. So I was trying to cover it up with something, and then later on I figured out that I could delete it, and I think I ended up just using, I think I just surface painted some asphalt onto there. I don't even remember for sure though. I may or may not show that part. I'm not sure. I ended up with like an hour of clips, even sped up, and I want to keep these to like 15 to 20 minutes. So I cut a lot of stuff out to try to make that happen. Anyway, I really like those leaf decals that you just saw me putting down. Those are something that I'm planning on using pretty heavily throughout this series. I didn't use them a ton for this build because it's not really that tree heavy, but when I start to get to the less industrial areas where there's going to be more trees, like the commercial build and like the downtown, some residential stuff, I'm planning on doing a lot of those fall trees with the fall leaves underneath because I really, really love the way that those look. And here I'm finally going back to working on the edges. I think I actually finish it this time. This was another thing that I struggled with a little bit, is the relationship between the paths and surface painter. Whenever I do the surface painter delete thing or whatever, I don't know, and clear out the surfaces, and then I try to put a path there, there's just no path. So that was a little bit annoying, but we got through it. And here's some more of those leaves that I like. I also threw this, it's just a water storage thing, but I thought it fit the aesthetic pretty well. I don't love the blue tops. I wish it was a little bit more gray like the power plant is, but I think it still looks okay. And I mean, a little bit of color, I guess, isn't the worst thing in the world. It is kind of a very monotone build, so I guess having a little bit of blue in there is not necessarily the worst thing. And now I'm remembering, actually, I think the reason that I started working on the weeds and then stopped was because I couldn't find a weed asset that I liked, and then I went to the workshop and looked for some other stuff. I downloaded these bush clusters, which are pretty cool, and then I downloaded this other, I think it's savanna grass, I don't remember, some other weed asset, or I guess savanna grass isn't necessarily weeds, but you know, gray grass, you get the point. But I downloaded some other stuff to try to fill in those gaps a little bit. I'm still not super happy with those assets for this situation, but it worked out, whatever. I think it looks decent, and really the point is just to have some coverage there. Once the trees go in, you can hardly see the weeds anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter too much. But yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit more life to the edge there along the water. I really like that vanilla, I think it's just called vegetation. And find it, it's called like vegetation number 2. I really like those assets. It's funny because coming from console, those are on console too. I think they added them with Park Life, and they look pretty bad on console. Like, I do not use those on console at all. I'm not a fan of them. They don't fit in anywhere, I feel like. And I guess it's just maybe the graphics limitations on console. They just don't render as nice. But now that I finally got a good old 1080 Ti in my computer, they look real nice. So I was happy with those. And then I wasn't going to put this pump, and then just kind of on a whim, I decided to slap it down. Just, to keep the hot parts of our nuclear facility, natural gas facility, nice and cool. And I ended up liking the way it looked, and I thought it would be cool to add a path on top of it, so the maintenance guys can get out there and work on it if anything ever breaks, or just for routine maintenance. So this was a little bit of a pain to get right. I had to fight with Move It a lot because I wanted to kind of have the path clipped into it but still have the railings. I thought that would be kind of a neat way to do it. But it was just a little bit difficult to get it positioned exactly how I wanted it. And then if I brought the path down too low, the path clipped into it at parts where I didn't want it to clip in at, if that makes any sense. Like, I wanted the path's texture right until you get to that round part of the pump. And then I wanted it to clip into the pump. So it's kind of tricky to get that to happen, but we got it. And then we moved on. And yeah, we're really getting towards the end of this build now. There's actually, I build the highway exit in this episode also. So we'll see that in a second. But yeah, the last things I really did was throw some decals down. I could not, for the life of me, figure out a good asset to put in that little gap there. I was thinking about maybe doing a parking lot for like utility vehicles for the power plant. And I thought I had some van assets or something that I was going to plop in there, but it turned out I didn't, so I didn't end up doing that, and I just extended that warehouse instead. And here I was just playing with putting some other planters and stuff down. I ended up bailing on the one I had tried to put in that sort of rounded area. I come back to it later and put something there, but I don't think I do that on camera. And yeah, here I just threw some flowers and stuff into these planters just to give it a little bit more green. I really like these sort of like weedy flower assets I've got. I don't even know where those came from. I don't actually remember downloading them, but I've got a bunch of them. There's like 10 different colored variants. But I think they look really nice. They do a good job of sort of filling out larger spaces, and they're more than just like a flower. There's some nice greenery to it also, so I like that. Anyway, so I'd thrown in this crappy little straight road just going to the national road that is our highway, just to kind of get some traffic hopefully coming in here. It didn't really, but I don't know, that was the thought process. So now I'm going through and building what will be the actual road. And a big thing for me in this series is I really want to take advantage of the natural terrain. I don't want to do too much terraforming, and I want to just kind of build within the constraints of the landscape that I'm working with. So I was really trying to kind of follow the flow of the land and just sort of, I don't know, just follow the topography. So that's what I was doing there. And I just wanted to give this bridge a little bit more detail. Earlier on, I had changed the poles. I don't even know what those are called. The pillars, the pylons. Yeah, we'll go with pylon, pillar, whatever. I had changed those, and then I screwed something up, and I was just changing them back there. And then I put some little supports along the edge. I thought that looked pretty nice. Oh, and I actually... Is that the pylons that I ended up going with? I hope it's not. I don't like those ones as much as those other stone ones. I might go back and change that if I don't in this video. I don't know if I changed those back or not. I don't like those as much. Anyway, so yeah, now we're building the intersection. I mean, I had to do a little bit of terraforming, obviously, but I'm still just kind of trying to follow the terrain as best as I can. I did not want to touch that mountain that straddles the highway at all. So you're going to see in a second here, I had to do like a really, really, really compact loop here to kind of get this onto the highway. And I guess I probably could have gone left with it also, but I wanted to do sort of and you'll see in a second what I'm going to do. I like to do these sort of like 2-lane situations that then split and then just do like a little, I don't know the verbiage for it, but you'll see what I'm aiming for here in a second. So yeah, I'm gonna make this next bit 2-lane. Man, I'm just getting way ahead of myself here. I kept running into this issue with floating trees also. Whenever I adjusted the terrain, I had all these floating trees. So now I'm just like going through and trying to find all the trees that I had made levitate and delete those. I'm sure there's probably still a lot of floating trees hidden away along here. But there, that's what I was talking about with the 2-lane roads. But yeah, you can't really see the floating trees too much unless you're really looking for them. And I'll hide those as best as I can. But yeah, whatever, I don't know what the technical jargon is for whatever this type of off-ramp is, where the one kind of loops and one goes a little bit more straight on and then they connect to a 2-lane road. But I really like those. I think those look pretty cool and they're pretty functional. So, oh, that's where I figured out how to use Surface Painter to delete the grass. That was a big discovery. And then I just did these like simple straight ones. I'm not worried too much about this being able to handle like super high loads or anything, because this isn't where I'm necessarily planning on building our population. I'm thinking about doing a trailer park or something over there at some point, but for the most part, this is just going to be like the power plant over there. And I'll probably leave the incinerator in it, or maybe build an incinerator area. I don't know. We'll figure that out. It works for now. I'm kind of itching to start actually building the city, though, so I probably won't mess too much with any of that anytime in the near future. I really want to get a population. You can see here we've got 7 people living in the guard shack, and that is our entire population of Goingsnake right now, so that's definitely a goal, you know, get some people living in this city. And my editing here and what I'm actually showing is a little bit haphazard at this point, because I really tried to cut out a lot of the fat in this intersection build, because I wanted to include it in the power plant episode. But like I mentioned, I also want these episodes to be like 20 minutes, and we're already at 30 minutes. So I tried to kind of consolidate this a little bit. So there's going to be some stuff that you're going to see kind of pop up here that you're not going to actually see me build. I tried to leave the interesting stuff in, but stuff like me placing lines and doing a bunch of barriers over and over and over, I kind of cut out a lot of that. And then there was also a lot of me just like screwing stuff up and then trying to fix it that it made its way in here. So I deleted that stuff. But yeah, I was pretty happy with the way that this intersection came out. I don't know how realistic necessarily some of my wall placement and stuff is. I tried to just kind of place walls in areas where it was kind of a bend and there was maybe a risk of people driving off the road. And then put those colored warning ones in areas where, you know, people were changing directions and there was maybe some risk of hitting a barrier that had suddenly appeared. And I did a little bit of landscaping here. It's not like the most stunning thing in the world. I was really just kind of trying to fill in the space a little bit. This is a cool little thing here. I used procedural objects and these blank signs to make the off-ramp. So we've got a nice custom power plant off-ramp here. Exit 1. Because that's how we're doing it. The first exit is exit 1. I feel like that makes sense. So yeah, that came out cool. And then I did the same thing over on this side. I had to flatten it out a little bit. Oh no, terraforming. Oops. Sorry, nature. I guess we're not going to see me do that other one, but it's there, I promise. It's in the cinematics. And then here I just threw some of these bushes in over here. I really like these bushes. I wish, for whatever reason, I can't rotate them, which is a bummer, because they do kind of look a little bit funky the way that they're all facing the same direction. I used to have the tree random rotator mod on here, but it was giving me some flickering, which I did not want, so I turned it off, and I guess it just is what it is. But anyway, the music is coming on, so I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, here's some cinematics.